We're going to continue exploring the standard form of a linear equation. This is going to be 2.3 standard form part 2. And as a reminder, that is the standard form of a linear equation. Remember, it's going to be 8x plus by is equal to c, where a, b, and c are integers. Now, the essential question is going to be, how does a graph of a squared plus by equals c relate to vertical and horizontal lines? We're going to go ahead and explore that in just a minute. So if you look at this example, notice that that equation is in the format of 8x plus by is equal to c. However, notice that a is going to be equivalent to c. So if you notice on your equation, a is equal to c, which means that there's no more x value, right? Since you're multiplying 0 times x. So that means you're left with 2y is equal to 6. All right, well, we want y by itself because eventually we want to graph the function. So the 2 and the y, they're multiplying each other, which means that to get rid of the 2, we're going to go ahead and divide by 2. That becomes 1, and you're left with y is equal to 6 divided by 2, which is 3. So here's what I want you to look into. If you remember, we got the slope intercept form, which is y is equal to mx plus b. Now, if I move the 3 from my original equation, check this out. I'm going to go ahead and move it here. And technically, my 3 is a positive. So what do you notice about my result in the slope intercept form? Well, hopefully you notice that the 3 represents your b value, which means that your y-intercept is at 3. So I'm going to go to my y-axis, and I'm going to put a dot at 3. Okay. However, if you notice, there's no m. So in this case, because there is no m, again, because there's no m, that means that your m value in this case is 0, which means that there's no rise or run. It's actually just a straight horizontal line. So again, when your slope is 0, you're going to have a horizontal line. Okay, so go ahead and take a minute. If you guys need to pause the video, make sure that you let the sub know to pause the video for 30 seconds so you guys can write that down. But again, overall, when you graph a linear function and your m value is 0, that means your slope is 0, which means you're going to create a horizontal line. Now go ahead and turn the page over. So we're going to look into the effects when b is equal to 0. So again, this is in standard form. So this is 8x plus by is equal to c. But in this case, our b value is going to be 0, which means that this value is gone. Well, let's see what happens. We're going to be left with 3x is equal to -6. And we're going to go ahead and try to graph this function. Now, remember, in this case, we don't have a y anymore. So we're going to be solving for x. 3 and x are multiplying each other. So to get rid of it, we're going to divide by 3. Now we're left with 1. or x is equal to -6 divided by 3, which is -2. Now notice that if we compare this to the slope-intercept form, the slope-intercept form has y is equal to mx plus b. In this case, there's no y. So how do we graph this function when there's no y? So whenever you want to graph a function, or in this case, this is actually not a function, but if you want to graph the equation and there's no y value, when you see x is equal to something, it's going to create a vertical line. So we're going to go find when x is -2, and when x is -2, remember we're looking at the axis since we're looking for x. So when x is -2 is right there. And because there's no y, we're going to have a vertical line that looks just like this. Okay, so remember this is vertical line. And when you have a vertical line, we actually don't have a slope. We have an undefined slope. Right, so when it comes to for you graphing linear functions in standard form, make sure that you're careful and you recognize when it's going to be a vertical line and when it's going to be a horizontal line. Now, up next, you're going to be working on a scavenger hunt. You're going to be graphing linear functions in standard form. So again, recognize vertical and horizontal lines and be able to find X and Y intercepts.